Two solder joints, same components, same solder wire, same iron, same hand, same temperature setting. Under a microscope, they look almost identical. The same silver dome, the same shine. One of them will carry current for the next 20 years. The other one will fail in about 6 months, and nobody will know why until the board is already dead. The gap between them is roughly 10 degrees Celsius, held for about a quarter of a second. The obvious explanation is that soldering is simple. Melt metal, stick two things together, let it cool. That explanation is wrong. What actually happens in that quarter second is closer to chemistry than construction. A sequence of 6 conditions that all have to land in order. And if even one of them drifts, you get a joint that looks perfect and dies anyway. This is what that sequence actually looks like. Close enough to see the exact moment it goes right. Or wrong. Zoom in far enough, and a solder joint stops looking like a repair task. It starts looking like a recipe. Heat, surface tension, chemistry, and timing, layered in a specific order with almost zero room for error. Get the order right, and you get a bond solid enough to trust for decades. Get one variable wrong, and you get what's called a cold joint. A connection that looks solder shiny under normal light, but is actually a loose, granular, weak crystal structure hiding a gap invisible to the naked eye. There are 6 steps in that recipe. Here they are, one at a time, up close. Step 1, the substrate. Before any heat touches the board, the copper pad gets cleaned with isopropyl alcohol. Any trace of oil or oxidation left on that surface becomes a weak point the solder can never fully bond to. The alcohol evaporates in seconds, and for a moment, the metal is as clean as it will ever be. Step 2, flux. Its job has nothing to do with sticking things together. It's a chemical shield. The moment metal gets hot, it starts oxidizing in open air, and oxidation is exactly what stops solder from wetting the surface. Flux blankets the pad and holds oxygen off just long enough for the bond to form underneath it. The iron doesn't touch down and melt anything on contact. Step 3 is about loading heat into the pad and the component at the same time, climbing toward the solder's melting threshold, degree by degree. Too fast, and you shock the component. Too slow, and the flux burns off before the metal is ready. There's a narrow window, and it's measured in fractions of a second. The same fraction of a second that separates the 2 joints from the top of this video. Step 4, solder flow, the wetting phase. The instant the tin crosses its melting point, it stops behaving like a solid resting on a surface and starts behaving like a liquid that wants to spread. It flows into every microscopic groove in the copper and, in that instant, actually alloys with it. The 2 metals fuse into a single crystal structure at the interface. By now, the joint is already deciding its own fate at a scale no eye can follow in real time. This is step 5. Surface tension does something no human hand could do this precisely. As the liquid solder minimizes its own surface area, it physically pulls the component into perfect alignment on the pad, self-centering the part with a force more exact than anything a steady hand could manage. Step 6, cooling. The iron pulls away, and in under 2 seconds, the liquid metal locks into a solid crystal lattice. A good joint hardens into a smooth, concave, mirror-bright dome. A bad one turns dull, grainy, cracked at the edges, evidence in plain sight that one of the previous 5 steps didn't hold. That's the level of precision hiding inside something as ordinary as a repaired circuit board. If this helps, support the channel on Patreon or become a member. Now here's where it gets strange. Look at the joint that failed next to the one that worked. Same operator, same iron, same spool of solder, minutes apart. And yet one of them is a permanent electrical certainty, and the other is a ticking failure. Here's the part that's easy to forget. Even in the joint that worked, nothing was actually certain at the atomic level. You just forced billions of tin, silver, and copper atoms to arrange themselves into a lattice through heat, timing, and surface tension. What looks like one clean, deterministic bond is really the statistical outcome of an enormous number of individual, probabilistic events, pushed hard enough in the same direction that they behave like a certainty. In hardware, that's the whole game. We want an absolute, a closed circuit that reads a clean binary 1, or an open one that reads a clean 0. But the path to that absolute is paved entirely in physical probability. We don't eliminate randomness. We build a recipe precise enough to force nature into a pattern predictable enough to trust. Mastering this recipe, clean pad, flux, precise heat, wetting, alignment, cooling, gives us the feeling of total control over matter. 6 steps followed correctly and you get certainty. But apply that same logic of probability somewhere else, to a system that isn't shaping tin, but shaping language. And the question gets a lot harder to answer. Can a machine ever guarantee truth, the same way a closed circuit guarantees current flowing through it? The honest answer is more complicated than most explanations make it sound, because probability is not the same thing as proof. That's exactly the gap explored in probability is not proof, and LLMs will never cross that line. The video that picks up right where this one leaves off.